Rise. I am going to introduce our next speaker, and his name is Michael Anders. He is a performance consultant, Marine Corps veteran, and founder of Next Level Consulting. Sorry, it's Next Level Performance Consulting. I gotta get it right. Sorry about that. With nearly 25 years of leadership experience and advanced degree from Arizona State University and Thunderbird School of Global Management, he helps business leaders align habits with goals to prioritize health, reduce stress, and achieve fulfillment. I can tell that. You have really nice traps.
Oh, well, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Through individual coaching and team consulting, Michael empowers leaders and organizations to improve efficiency, foster honest communication, and create lasting impact. A sought-after speaker and coach, he has been featured on platforms like Barbell Shrugged and Team Red, White and Blue, the Eagles podcast. Please welcome Michael.
Is it cool if I work the floor?
You work the floor.
Okay, cool. I put this jacket on this morning and realized it was a little snug, so that's why my traps look so big, so appreciate that. Before I get started, I want to balance the frequency in the room. So if everybody would just do me a favor and be present for yourself and with each other. Go ahead and sit upright in your chairs. Close your eyes. Deep breath in. Audible exhale. Deep breath in. Exhale. Deep breath in. Exhale. Open your eyes. Now that we've dropped in, I want to lead off with some wisdom that was given to me by a mentor of mine who I recently met last year, at the end of last year. Her name's Faith. And she introduced me to this saying that really knocked me off my feet. And it really speaks to the things I'm going to tell you today. And if you've got a pen in your hand, keep it out, because along the way, I'm going to tell you to write some things down. It comes down to agreements. Nothing can affect you from the external world without agreement from your internal world. I came into this work as a result of my inciting incident in my own hero's journey in the Joseph Campbell sense of the word. See, when I was 16 years old, my dad asked me what I wanted to do with my life. And right off the top of my head, without giving it a second thought, 3 things came to mind. I wanted to get a scholarship and play football in college. I wanted to finish that degree, and I wanted to serve as an officer in the armed forces. About 18 months later, my senior year, 9/11 happens, recruiters are all over the place, I have a really good season, and the Air Force Academy comes calling. If you know anything about the service academies, that's my big 3 wrapped up with a bow. Now, my big brother is our family's historian, and he just recently stumbled upon my dad's autobiography. He died in 2007. And in that autobiography, he got accepted to the Air Force Academy and didn't go. And part of our journey, it was up here on an earlier slide, is it's part of our charter to reparent ourselves. And he was such an advocate for this academy experience. My mom is also a 26-year full bird colonel, retired with honorable service. It was almost as if it was written, my life's path. So I took that scholarship. And I remember sitting in the audience at in processing, and Colonel Ferris, the commanding officer of the Air Force Academy Prep School, stands up and says, "Look to your left and look to your right. One of you isn't going to make it to graduation." And I stood there in all my hubris, and I said, "Sucks to be one of you." 2 years later, I was the one dismissed early from the Air Force Academy for violating the honor code. That was my inciting incident. That was my reluctant introduction into my own growth journey. And it started in this valley where the silver spoon was ripped from my mouth, scholarship gone, Nike scholarships off the table, and I take a partial ride, sight unseen, to East Texas State, about 75 miles east of Dallas. There's more cows than people. And begin to rebuild myself and discover for Michael who Michael is. Through that journey, I was introduced to personal growth and development. My first mentor, Mark Aceta, took me under his wing and showed me what it was to really own your journey and stop externalizing and start internalizing. Because write this down. Your relationships are your responsibility. How many of you right here, right now, show of hands, we're here to play full out and be present, took that statement and went to your significant other, your kids, your friends, your job, went somewhere else with that statement? Show of hands. It's okay. That's normal. But your relationship with your external world starts by becoming congruent with your relationship with you. And that was the awakening the rude awakening that I had. Let's write this one down. The failure of any relationship, personal or professional, is due to unmet expectations. The failure of any relationship, personal or professional, is due to unmet expectations. But here's the kicker. What if you don't even know that those expectations that are going unmet are expectations that you have at all, let alone being able to effectively communicate said expectations? So wisdom comes from funny places. And in this season of my life, I find myself embarking on these adventures. The Salkantay trek to Machu Picchu, summit in Kilimanjaro. I've got Antarctica on the list. Next weekend, I'm doing rim to rim to rim. And part of our charter at Next Level and what we ask of our clients when they start to work with us, the process is really simple. It comes in 3 parts. Step 1, keep your promises. Step 2, do hard things. Step 3, as a result of steps 1 and 2, you make yourself proud. And what happens, that process is the catalyst for a positive feedback loop that allows you to transcend your old self and bridge the gap between where you are right now and your aspirational self, who it is that you're becoming. And on one of these trips, my buddy Alec, we deployed together. We were in Afghanistan together as Marines. And everybody called him Lieutenant Pal because he was everybody's friend. He had a way of relating to people. He was so congruent with who he was, nothing fazed him. He's a beautiful soul. And the thing about these adventures that we go on together, there's always a point, 100% of the time, where you run out of superficial nonsense to talk about. The issues of business, what's going on with the wives. You run out of all of that, and the only thing that's left is the truth, your truth. And by virtue of the catharsis of just simply putting one foot in front of the other, over and over and over again, for hours on end, you cannot come out of that experience unchanged. And the wisdom I'm referring to, when we ran out of all that nonsense, Alec introduced me to this concept that I've integrated into literally everything that we do, everything that I do in my relationships. And that's embracing honest conflict over dishonest harmony. I would so much rather be uncomfortable with you for 5 minutes and walk on eggshells for days, weeks, sometimes years. And inevitably, without fail, if you are immersed in dishonest conflict or allow others to treat you with dishonest conflict, it inevitably comes to a head in completely unrelated and unjustified ways. The dishes don't get done, and all of a sudden, the world is collapsing. The kids leave the toys out, and you blow up for absolutely no reason. Nobody saw it coming. All of that is born of not dealing, of these passive-aggressive patterns that lead to unmet expectations that ultimately create the source of the vast majority of the friction that we experience in our lives. And guess what? It's our fault. What I want you to walk away from this talk with is being empowered to communicate in honest conflict, knowing that that friction is layered on a foundation of love and respect. And it serves the greatest good of our relationship, of my relationship with self, my relationship with you, that we address the source as opposed to this trail of breadcrumbs that are the symptoms of this bigger issue. And I promise you, if you lean into this practice courageously, because there's nothing about it that's easy. However, with repetition, it gets easier. That's keeping a promise, that's doing a hard thing, that's making yourself proud. That's that positive feedback loop that is reinforced with the adoption of this behavior. And when you lean into it, you'll know in your circle of influence who's on your team and who's not. because this courageous behavior, this new pattern, this stepping into your highest and best self, if it's uncomfortable for you, you can be damn sure it's going to be uncomfortable for the people around you. But here's the cool part. When you're acting in alignment, in congruence with your highest and best self, nobody asks you for justification because you're standing in your truth. Uncomfortable as it may be for them, there's no excuse for you to give. And energetically, you know that, and they know that. So going back to that relationship with yourself and understanding who you are. My wife and I have word codes. I'm a communicator, she's a doer. She speaks what, I speak who. I know that when communicating with her, it doesn't matter who's doing it. It doesn't matter what the system is. It doesn't matter what the timeline is. What is the desired result that we're looking for? She will go out and start moving towards that initiative and ask questions if and when she needs it. Me, on the other hand, I want to know who's responsible for things, who's doing it. Is that my job? Is that Marsha's job? Who's doing it? Who's on the team? Who do I get to do it with? That's what really matters to me. If I don't get that information, whatever it is she's communicating to me falls on deaf ears. Write this one down. Effective communication. Message intended is message received. This was such a massive lesson for me, not only in my professional life, but also in my marriage. I've been a coach for over 2 decades. I talk for a living, only to get into the most meaningful relationship of my life to realize that I'm a shitty communicator. Because my wife and I, people as we may be, task-oriented, team-oriented, our needs and expectations require time alone. And you would never look at me, experience me, and make that assumption. And not knowing that about myself, I would say yes to everything. Burn that candle at both ends. Not set the appropriate boundaries. Not way more yeses than nos. Very lopsided existence. And who gets the fallout when it all comes crashing down? Not you guys. I'm here, playing full out, showing up for you, only to go home, and what little is left, if anything, falls in her lap. Now, when we signed up to do this deal for the rest of our lives, Nicole and I, how many Nicoles were in the room? 18? Holy smokes. Yeah, too many. Oh my gosh. Actually, it makes my life really easy. So if I call any of you who ain't Nicole, it's the Nicole's fault. So we had to create these word codes. her being a doer, right? That's also her toxic trait. Give me more. I can do it. I can do it. I can do it. What are we doing? I can do it. In the knowing of ourselves, I know when she says, I'm tired, because our relationship ain't 50-50. It's 100 and 100. All right. I need to show up. For her, I need to show up for us. Because when I know what that means for her to express that out loud. Because the way that it used to be, effective communication, right? Same toxic trait, shit just falls apart. And I'm sitting there like, where the hell is all that coming from? It was up here on the slide. That perception, that unmet expectation that I'm supposed to be a psychic. I'm joking. But we've had those conversations, right? We recognize and we've created this agreement between us that for the sake of our own sanity and our relationship, we will exist in this honest conflict and avoid dishonest harmony at all costs. It's not fair to her. It's not fair to me. And most importantly, it sure as shit doesn't set the example for our kids. So how does this all come full circle? I'll share a story with you. It just happened yesterday. My son, he's 8. Pick him up from school. I got a honey-do list. I got to run to Lowe's. I got to run some errands. She's going to take our daughter and go do mommy-daughter stuff. I've never been inside TJ Maxx. I don't ever want to go inside TJ Maxx. She says, I'm going to take Cameron to TJ Maxx. You take Tristan to Lowe's and go do the daddy stuff. Cool. My son starts crying, runs over to Mama Bear, hugs her on the hip and says, I want to go with you. I was like, boy, if you don't get your ass in the car, we got things to do. He gets in the car, weeping. My son. I'm like, dude, there's nothing about what we're about to do that requires all this emotion. What's really going on? And he says to me, in my opinion, mom's the better parent. I was in reverse, now we're in part. Tell me more. Go on. And God bless him, he goes on to tell me all the things that are different about the way mom does mom stuff and the way dad does dad stuff. I asked some clarifying questions. We got back to common ground. And I asked him, I was like, dude, what's my job? He's like, to discipline me? I said, no, man. My job is to prepare you, to hold you accountable so you go out in the world ready. That's what I'm doing. Do you understand? Yes. Okay, cool. Are we good? Yes. Awesome. If we're good, then why are you still sad? He says, because I think you're mad at me. I was like, why would I be mad at you? Because I told you I thought that mom was the better parent. I said, no, man, I couldn't be more proud. He's like, hmm? Don't get me wrong. I don't agree with what he said, but I 100% understand where he's coming from. If I'm him, I want her, not me. I get it. And still, I was like, dude, what makes me so proud is the fact that we have such a relationship that you're willing to tell me exactly how you're feeling. And you don't, and I know this is hard. This is not easy for either of us. I don't like hearing the mom's a better parent. But we have such a relationship. Our example of honest conflict has permeated into our children to the point that my 8-year-old son is willing to stand in that discomfort and tell me exactly what the hell is going on, as opposed to distracting himself or diving off into his bedroom or sinking into it, some screen somewhere, right? This thing that I'm talking about, this isn't something that I've sat with him and been like, son, honest conflict, dishonest harmony, let me have it. That's not how it's done. When you're standing in alignment, when you are congruent, when you are in your truth, and that friction, that intentional adversity that you're inviting into your life is built on a foundation of love and respect, it's infectious. And when you start vibrating on that frequency, it does one of two things. It repels the pretenders and becomes magnetic to those that need that energy. And you don't have to explain anything. When you're making that shift in your own existence, it's way less a rallying cry and standing on that hill that you want to die on, pumping your fists, and way more simply being, exemplifying what it is to embrace honest conflict instead of dishonest harmony. So a couple of things I want to leave you with to recap the things that you should have wrote down and maybe you missed. Your relationships are your responsibility. And the number one, your first priority relationship is the relationship with yourself. If you don't get that together, every other relationship is going to be built on a foundation of sand. That positive feedback loop. Keep your promises. Do hard things. Make yourself proud. I'm honored and grateful to be here. If you can pull up that slide. Thank you very much. The good doctor here is going to pull up my contact information. It'll show up here right behind me. If you want to get a hold of me, I'm a resource for everyone in this room. I'd love to spend time with you and really help you get to know yourselves that much better, so that as you stand in your truth and you go out there and you communicate in the world, the message intended is indeed the message received. Progress always. Do I have time for questions? Sweet. Any questions?
Thanks, Michael. I appreciate your time here. So I guess it's more of a clarifying question.
Sure.
So I know you said embrace honest conflict. Okay, so we can't control how the other person's going to react.
Yeah.
Are you saying if they're not going to embrace that, it's best to walk away from that relationship?
No. That's like step 4. Okay. First things first, I want to be very, very clear. You are not responsible for how somebody reacts and or responds to you communicating your expectations. That's not your responsibility. However, to increase the odds of a positive response, make sure that you curate that conversation so that it is understood that regardless of what friction shows up, it comes from a place of love and respect. I'm not telling you the things that I'm telling you because I want to hurt your feelings. That is not my intention. However, whether you like what I'm saying or not is not my responsibility. I can't tell you how many times my wife and I have had a conversation. And again, coming back to what we've created inside our relationship, she stood there and told me, as I'm hemming and hawing, bitching and moaning, Michael, that's not mine to own. I know she's not being dismissive, but she's being honest. And where I was externalizing, I now know there's work to be done in here. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely.